right now. I'm gonna get to that thing painting with the peeling. Okay, so you have your render right here, and if you click on this, we'll go to our out tab, which gives us this, right? And this right here is like let's say it's like our render settings in Arnold, but I believe it's better. At first, I used to think it was crazy, you know, because everything in Houdini was just so hard, but it's actually super duper easy. All right, so check it out. Right now this is out mantra one, so I could say I could name it whatever I want. Eddie render, right? So look at what this does. It says Eddie render now, right? And how it works is this: I can select my camera right here, select this, select my camera. You know, let's give my camera a cooler name so it makes sense. Cam. I was right about to write Newton. That'd have been corny. Let me go to out and um, oh look, see it already got it, right? So we're going to the object level and it's grabbing the camera because it knows, hey, only a camera's supposed to be here. So I'm only looking at cameras. So it's not going to give you tube, grid, and a whole bunch of stuff to look through, just cameras. And if I get lost, I can go over here and like, you know, type in like will or something and it'll like kind of find it. But there's only one camera, so it doesn't matter. Um, Images, this is how it writes out your image. Right now it's going to write it out as an EXR. Now this is something I didn't know, but it's important to know. HIP right here is like the, I don't know what it stands for, but it's where all the your Houdini stuff is, like your project folder. So it comes in with like its automatic project folder, just like Maya does, right? So it has all your renders, all your files, everything in it until you save it elsewhere. Render is the folder where all the uh the images go after you render them. And hip name, right? So this right here, hip name means the name of the file. So if I name this file I don't know, Eddie Boy or something like that, right? It'll say like render and it'll say Eddie Boy and it'll say Eddie render because that's this is the name dollar $OS is means the name of the node. And then dollar $F4, right? So a dollar means kind of like a variable, something that can be anything. So the F means frame and it's going to give four numbers. So it's going to say frame 001, frame 002. I think that's what it's going to say. 003 kind of thing. So the four, the number is the number of call it padding on the number. So if I have five or six, it's going to say six zeros, 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 1, 0 0 0 0 2. This is when you write out your animation because your animation has to have a number on the end. So it's going to say one, two, three, four, five, whatever it is. It's going to have a sequence of numbers, and this just gives it like padding. EXR is the file extension. So if we click down here, I actually don't ever go to this, but looks like what it does is it switches it to, ooh, actually, I'll be honest, I've never used this over here. I always just use EXR or type in the name, but I've never used this pull down menu. So it's doing something a little differently than I'm used to. TIFF, yeah, I've never touched that. Well, anyway, so you would type in the name there. These two, don't worry about. Output, don't worry about. Extra image planes, don't worry about. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Right? So all these things on the bottom, don't worry about them. Don't worry about this either. Don't worry about that. Worry about this and worry about this. All right. So these two, so basically this, and this are the only ones we're going to be concerning ourselves with. Rendering is like in Arnold where you have samples. So that overall samples, AA samples at the top of the thing in Maya that controls everything. Um, I guess this pixel samples is sort of like that. So right now it's at 3. If I give myself a render, just to show how it works. Oh, my camera. Oh, no, it should work. Oh, no, maybe not, right? I mean, it's going to work, but it might not work for the view I think it should work at. And why is that? Because right now it says ROP camera. Um, I'm actually not sure. I mean, this is a render route, but if you go over here, oh, and check this out. We can save the picture with a snapshot, which is right here. Click on this. Done. We got the snapshot. So if I click on here and I go to my object cam wheel, the one that I made, I'll just stop it and give it another render. It should give us this in our real camera. Oh, I guess I was already set up. Hmm. Usually this, oh no, it's scene view. That's what it is. So, okay, so this is our camera. And if I go over here to scene view, which is almost like our perspective in Maya, where you have your camera and then you have your perspective, which is you moving around and working. So this is like the same thing, but it's just called scene view. I got 2 and 3, so we can definitely go through these and find out which one is doing what. But it's basically the camera is what we have set up. Yeah, see, so it's just giving us different shots, parts of this. You don't have to snapshot. I just do it just because I like to see from whack to like good. All right, so let me get back in our camera. So clicking on this, we have minimum and maximum samples. So remember, think about samples like quality control, like all of this noise right here, pixelation. But the more samples, the longer the render time. And so this is like a preview render. It's quick, so it's not using too much. But if I was to crank this up, it would get higher. With this also, well, just let me do a full render real quick. It'll also, so this is kind of cool. It gives you like a estimated time of arrival, of when it's going to be done. And this tells you how long it's been going on for. When it finishes, it should tell you this should be burned into the image. So when you look back, you can see how long a certain render took. So this is got these new shoes, squeaky as hell. So yeah, so this is 36 seconds, so it's already in there. And if I click on the snapshot and I click back, we know it's 36 seconds. So it's helpful that way. Um, with these are settings. So if you did have something that was reflective, it could get a few more samples using this. These I don't really mess with that much, but just for the sake of this, let's see if it did anything. If we were to double it. And then you can scroll in with your wheel, or you can alt right click, just like We're using a 2D orthographic view and pan. So that I like to go in and look at it like this and then go back with the old one to kind of like see something extras there. And this is how I kind of tell what's going on with these. Sometimes it's like a small difference, sometimes a big one. But as we can see, the old one, right, gives us this, and the new one gives us this, right? So it's like the blending of the pixels almost. It's changed and it makes it smoother and it's just nicer because you have like nicer transition of colors and over the edges, things like that. All right. So just take it back to one and don't worry about those. Worry about this though. Diffuse limit is like a bounce light, right? So we already know what it looks like in this view, but if I crank this up one, it'll give us more bounce light, which we might be able to tell, maybe not. Depends on the HDRI, depends on the intensity, depends on the angle. So, but okay, so we can already see, right, with those samples, what it's doing. I mean, not the samples, the diffuse limit, cranking it up. What it's doing is this. Because we cranked it up one diffuse limit, it means that light is bouncing around a bit more. So let's say before it just hit this, bounce, hit this, bounce, and it kind of just maybe hit this and went away, right? Now it like hits this bounce. Well, let me not say that the wrong way. It allows the light to keep on going and bouncing off of different surfaces a bit more than when it was off at zero. So with this, we're not getting any light here because the light hit like one time and then it like kind of died, right? With this, the light keeps on going, bounce, 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 and it like gets into the areas and it subtly lights them. So if we look at the old one and look at this one, so there's a bit more contrast with this, and you could get that look while it's on the setting, and it'll look a lot better because certain areas that are darker will be like illuminated. And with some other lights in, we can get in like a little bit more details there. So this is actually the superior one, even though this one can look kind of cool because it's kind of dark, but this is better. But that does increase render time. So we see it's at 52 as opposed to 36. Okay. Um, Subsurface, that's like skin and things like that. Volume is something else we're not messing with. And yeah, so this one I would say be the only one here we'd really mess with. And these over here don't matter. We'll go to, oh, and check this out. Right now it's on ray tracing. So let's see what the difference is if we take it to, I think I have to look at something else, but I mean, these won't make that much of a difference, but I think ray tracing might be for volumes. Well, let's just see the difference. There shouldn't be too drastic of a difference, but we'll see. Or maybe this is the one we're supposed to do geometry. Like I said, if you have physically based, it's not gonna like ruin anything. I just thought there was I think there is another rule for this, but it's cool. So as always, I'm gonna go in and compare, see what the difference is. Might be done. But one thing to keep in Consideration is the render times. Ooh, sorry, Lene. So you do one of these, you look at it, you look at the quality, and you look at the render. Now, if you have a whole lot of, frames, then it can make a difference. So look, there is a difference. And I think this one gives off a little bit more of a reflection. Yeah, see, like right here. So we're gonna keep it on this. All right. So if we go to, oh yeah, allow motion blur, that's if this thing was moving somewhat, it would like have like a blur on the frame. So like let's say I was moving it this way, it'll calculate the space between the last place and this place, and it'll give it like a little blur to its previous position. Yeah, it ain't important now. Objects, this is where it's important. Candidate are objects. Um, Keith Kamholt says this is a dangerous setting to have it on this because it's getting everything. When that star is there, it means everything. So what do I mean by everything? It means it clicks, if you click on this, everything in the object context will be rendered, right? But if I take this off, of course it's going to render nothing because it's saying, hey, what am I supposed to render? There's nothing to render, all right? But if I go to force objects, click on this, and I go to force import eddy, now I render. It's going to give us the lights and only eddy, right? It's not going to give us that backdrop because it's only forcing. So force objects in this parameter are added to the IFD regardless of the state of their display. Objects can only be added. Oh, and something else too. I'm glad I read that. If you have this context right here and this flag isn't off and it's inside of candidate objects, it won't render. But if this is in the force objects, it'll render 100%. And something else to notice, I just select that render node, right? That was the last node I selected. So we have the mantra eddy render node, right? Right here. Now let's say I all right, so right now it's only importing eddy, right? And another way we can bring in eddy is we could just take them and drag it in. And what this means is this, when you see these slashes, it's saying it's like a folder, right? So we're inside of the eddy folder. So it's saying the import eddy folder, everything in this node, right? And then it's in the object world, right? So this is what it's saying when you have these like slashes. It's like folders, it's like going into a hole. It's like it's like I walk on the campus slash I go into into the cafeteria slash I sit down in my seat, right? And then that seat is the last one. But then it'll have the path of, the cafeteria, then it's the campus. So that's how it works. Um, so that's the eddy. What if I just want to get the grid? I could drag the grid and it's gonna replace that, right? So now let me just do a snapshot. I'll press play. I mean not play. Oh yeah, see it's kind of like play, like Arnold, but just says render. Now I just have the backdrop, right? Now let's say I wanted them both in there. What I can do is just select this and now select everything I want. So I want this eddy control click this accept pattern. Now we're both in there. Okay. Now, let's say this. Let's say I'm over here in my object context. There's a cleaner way to do this. I'm just doing this for demonstration. I'm gonna control click, right? This, I mean, not, no, well, I'm sorry. Alt left click to duplicate it. And now let me name this grid. Grid with the E. Nah, I'm not gonna do that. And it's the grid, right? So we have this right here, and we have this one. What I can do is I can just delete the eddy off of one, and now I have this grid. Now look at this, right? Camera wheel is the main camera, and we have an eddy render node. Now we have a grid render, right? So I can press play on this. What? That's not right, right? Because the grid is just supposed to. Oh, this is what it did, right? Um, if you click on this, it'll pin the parameters, right? So this is actually, so if I select this, we see this is the eddy render. If I select this, it's the grid render. If I click on this and hold this, right? No matter what I select, this window stays here. So it does that automatically sometimes. I don't know why, but so we have eddy, we have the grid. Okay, see what it did? I don't know. That kind of messed things up a little bit, but it's all good. Didn't mess things up too bad because I can just go back here, click on this, get eddy, click on this, and then just get the grid. All right. So we're on grid render. Click this. So we have this now, right? Our backdrop. Now let's say for whatever reason we wanted to render our backdrop separately, and then have our eddy on top, right? What we can do is, like I said, this is just a quick one. There's a better way to do this, but I'm gonna go to forced phantom. So what this means, let's see what it says. Objects forced to be output as a phantom object. When something is a phantom, it gives it its effect of its presence, but it's invisible. So if there was an eddy on top of here, just to explain what that means. If eddy's on top, right? Let's say we made eddy a phantom. All of these diffuse reflections, all this stuff will go away, but the phantom will be left is the shadow, right? So if I click on this grid and I go to force phantom and I go to import eddy, because that's what I named it. Click on this. So this is the grid without the phantom. This is the grid with it. See what we seeing back there, right? We're seeing this. So remember, this is eddy, eddy on the ground, eddy on the ground, eddy by himself, another ground. So just to see how it works. Oh, and let's say because I don't need to see this. If I don't want to see it, I'll just click on this X. Now it's away. So the last one, I don't want to see this either. I'll just click on the X. And I don't want to see solo eddy. Click on this. So now I get this and this. So you see? So then what we'll do later is we'll composite these two images. And I'll go into that lesson later. But when we composite them, what we'll do is we'll have this rendered, and then we'll have eddy rendered. And the power of compositing means that we can take this, we can make the shadows deeper, lighter. We can make Eddie, we can color correct him. We can make him brighter, more saturated, dull him out, just do a lot of things with this image on top of the other image. So think about it like Photoshop, like we're having, let's say we have a mountain in the background and we have another layer with something else on top. And we can go into the levels and change everything, and we can change each layer independently. The difference between doing that with animation is you have a sequence of images. So Photoshop is basically what we're doing anyway, but it's like Photoshop just works on one image at a time. When you're doing 3D with animation, at least, well, you could have still picture ads, which you would work with Photoshop most likely, but with these, uh, we can composite them. So we can composite whatever 96 images at a single time, and yeah, and we can change those. And then because it's animation in the compositor, let's say I wanted to change Eddie blue and then red, I could also like kind of mess with that in the compositing. I could set a keyframe for certain color, it plays along. So it'll be like 24 images with the same like color correcting settings or whatever we're manipulating as. And I could set a keyframe and then change it again for the next 24. So it's like you have this yeah, just like this great number control, right? Big, I mean, yeah, you just have a lot of control. And another cool thing about this is let's say you have Eddie and you have him in 96 frames, right? And you render him, you render it all the way through. Okay, you're done. Now you come back to your computer and you hit grid render. You render these 96, render out 96, and then you're done. But with Houdini, what's cool is we can do like this and do merge. And what we do is, select them both, go in here, and you click on this. And this gives us settings to render these things one after the other. So if I go to node by node, what it does is this. It'll render out 96 of these, and then immediately next, go over here, 96 of these. If it said frame by frame, it would do frame one of this, frame one of this, frame two of this, frame two of this. So it's just a good thing to know because you just click on this, kind of thing. You get those settings to come up, select this, and then hit render. And then you can go away and it'll give you a whole sequence of images for this and that. When I did Maya, I mean, there might be a way to do it, but I used to like wait for the whole thing to go through, come back, hit the button, wait for the next one, come back. So with this, it's cool because you can just have this right here. I'm telling you, I got the scene where I got it like this. It's like it's a whole bunch of these bad boys, and it's like you just gotta select them all. So you have 100 of these. You could have 100 of these. Click this, walk away from your computer for the weekend, and come back and see what you have. So yeah, it's just a quick introduction to Mantra render settings.